My name is Amina. I'm 26 years old, and if someone had told me years ago that one day I would tell this story out loud, I would have laughed or cried, because for a long time speaking meant danger. Feeling then was almost a sin. I grew up in a home where silence was the only way to survive, where obedience was more important than happiness, where honor was more important than truth. My father was a man admired, even feared, an imam respected by all. His presence was almost sacred. People lowered their eyes as he passed. And me? I was his daughter. They expected me to be the mirror of his holiness. On the outside, my life seemed impeccable. By the age of 9, I had already memorized much of the Quran. I wore my hijab with dedication. I prayed 5 times a day. I avoided the gaze of men. I walked discreetly, spoke softly. Everyone saw me as a pious young woman, an example of purity. But inside, I felt like a locked room, empty, stuffy, forgotten. I saw my mother, always so quiet, her tired eyes hidden behind her veil. Sometimes I wondered if she'd ever dreamed of a different life, if she'd ever felt true love, not control, not fear. She never spoke of it, but her silence said it all. And at night, I'd curl up in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, whispering softly, "God, are you there? Do you hear me?" The God I was taught to fear was distant, cold. Every prayer I said seemed to vanish into thin air, like smoke. There was no answer, no comfort, only rules, only fear. One day as a teenager, I summoned the courage to ask my father, "Why doesn't Allah answer? Why does he only command but never comfort?" His reaction left me cold. He looked at me with a severity that cut through me. "Shaitan whispers in the hearts of rebels," he said. "You must silence these questions before they destroy you." It hit me like a sentence. Asking was wrong. Doubting was betrayal. And that's how I learned to hide my doubts. To smile even when there was no joy. To accept praise for my faith, even when my heart was dying inside. But I was hungry. Hungry for something real. Something that wasn't just an obligation, but life. Something that didn't just demand my surrender, but offered me love in return. Something that touched my heart instead of imprisoning my soul. Before I continue, I want to say something. Maybe you're listening to this right now and think it's just another story, but it's not. This story matters, because there are thousands of other girls living exactly what I lived, in silence, in fear, without knowing there's a way out. So if this resonates with you, share it. Sometimes it's through a video, a click, that a life begins to change. Getting back. I grew up in London, in a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew my father. His name was a constant weight on me. I couldn't laugh out loud. I couldn't go out alone. I couldn't make friends with outsiders. Any misstep would reach his ears. My world was a minefield, and I walked barefoot. Sometimes I'd look at the girls at school and feel something strange, a mixture of sadness and envy. They laughed fearlessly, wore jeans, let their hair blow in the wind, and spoke loudly without a care in the world. And me? I swallowed my envy like someone swallowing tears, silently, guiltily. After all, envy was a sin, haram. But that didn't make the feeling go away. I just buried it deeper. I tried to fill the growing hole inside me with religion. I immersed myself in the Quran. I memorized more surahs. I prayed more zealously. I fasted more intensely. I believed for a while that perhaps, if I did everything right, the emptiness would go away. But it didn't. On the contrary, it seemed the more I tried to convince myself, the more the silence grew. One verse, however, wouldn't leave my mind. There is no compulsion in religion. Surah 2, 256. This confused me. If there was to be no compulsion, why did everything in my life feel forced? Why did I feel trapped within what was said to be sacred? And the prison wasn't made of iron. It was made of words, expectations, and the crushing weight of shame. My own father would say, "Amina, you are our honor. Your purity protects this house. If you fail, we all fall." And with that, my freedom ceased to exist. I wasn't a person. I was a promise, an image, a reflection of what he hoped for. Living like this was like being a shadow, visible but without substance. Still, there was something inside me that refused to die. A small, almost imperceptible part, but alive. A whisper deep inside my chest saying, God can't be just this. He can't be just rules, fear, control. If he truly is God, then he must also be love. But that kind of thinking was too dangerous. In Islam, to doubt is to flirt with death. So I learned to smile when people told me about the man my father would choose for me. I learned to lower my eyes, to swallow questions, to repeat prayers I didn't understand. And at night, alone, I would just say, God, if you exist, please, find me. I remember exactly the first time I felt something different. I was just a child, about 8 years old. I had a dream. I was surrounded by darkness. Everything around me was cold, empty, but in the distance, I saw a light, and in that light, there was a man. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew, in a way I can't explain, that he was good, that he knew me. He reached out his hand to me, and in that moment, I felt a warmth I'd never felt before. I woke up with tears streaming down my face. I told my mother, and she just said, Shaitan is trying to confuse you. So I buried the dream deep in my mind, but I never forgot the warmth. The years passed. By the time I turned 26, my life felt like a windowless room, getting smaller and smaller. My father began arranging my marriage to a distant relative in another country. My mother repeated every day that it was my duty. My brothers watched me as if I were a bomb about to explode, and I smiled. I prayed. I obeyed. But inside, I was falling apart. That little girl who, years ago, cried in the dark, asking God to appear, was still there, crying, begging, even without knowing exactly for whom, and without even realizing it. My prayer had reached the heavens, because the storm was coming, and with it, the one who reached out to me in the dream, the man in white. Today, when I close my eyes, I can see my childhood as if flipping through an old album. Some memories are blurry, as if time had rushed past them. Others still hurt, as if they happened yesterday. I remember the nights I sat on the living room floor, listening to my father speak in his heavy, authoritative voice. You carry the honor of our house, he would say, as if handing a sword to a child. And I believed him. I truly thought my worth came from this, from being obedient, pure, silent. But God, he saw me differently, and I was about to discover it. Daughters are the protection of a man's name. Do not bring shame, Amina. Do not bring shame to our house. Those words seared into me deeper than any scar. They weren't just advice. They were orders. Orders filled with fear, honor, and control. I heard them so many times that I began to believe my worth depended on not being a mistake. I remember the first time I touched the Quran. I was only 5 years old. It was too big for my small arms. The thin pages slipped through my fingers, the letters dancing in a language I barely understood. I wanted to see beauty in it. I wanted to feel something beyond its weight. But what I felt was fear, pressure. I couldn't make a mistake. At the madrasa, the teacher, an old man with cold eyes, didn't tolerate failure. If anyone mispronounced, he would slam his cane down hard on the table. One day, I stumbled over a word, and without hesitation, he struck my knuckles with his cane. The pain was sharp, as if my bones were cracking. My fingers remained purple for days. That night, staring at the swelling beneath my skin, I muttered to myself, if this is the God I was taught, why does he hurt me like this? But of course, I would never dare say it out loud. My mother was silent. She moved around the house as if apologizing for existing, always quiet, always subdued. I never saw her raise her voice. She seemed to live in another world, between the kitchen and the prayer mat, carrying a weight I didn't yet understand, but recognized. One night, after the beating at the madrasa, I ran to her room. My hands trembled, my eyes burning from crying. Mother, why do they beat us for making mistakes? She looked at me sadly, stroked my hair, and replied sweetly, we must be patient, my daughter. Allah loves those who persevere. That was always the answer. When my father yelled, when my brothers mocked me, when loneliness squeezed my chest, the answer was always, persevere. So I made it my shield. I hid behind obedience. I wore perseverance like a cloak. But inside, I was falling apart. A little before I was 9, I had another dream. In it, I was walking through a desert, completely alone. The sand burned my feet. The sun seemed to swallow me. I was so thirsty I could barely speak. I called out for help, for water, for someone, anyone. And then, in the distance, I saw a man, dressed in white. His face was like light, impossible to look at directly, but I felt no fear. I felt peace. He raised his hand, and from the rock beside him gushed living water. He said only one word, come. His voice was like music and thunder at the same time, soft yet powerful. I woke up crying, my heart racing. It was as if the dream had left a warmth inside me. I talked about it with my mother at breakfast. She tensed. She said, "These dreams are deceptions. Be silent, Amina." So, once again, I buried what I felt. But this dream stayed with me. I couldn't explain it, but it was different. It wasn't fear, it was hope. As the years passed, my purity became a kind of throne and a cell. My father praised me for being modest. The neighbors said I was a role model. My aunts said I would make a perfect wife, but no one saw what was happening inside. I was trapped. I couldn't laugh out loud, I couldn't run. I couldn't dream outside the confines they'd given me. Once, when I was a teenager, I asked my father, "Why can my brothers go out, play ball, make friends, and I can't even walk to the corner alone?" He gave me that hard look and replied, "Because you're a girl, a flower, and flowers can't be left to the wind. If they're not protected, they're picked and destroyed." But what if I wanted to feel the wind? I wanted to scream. I wanted to say I wasn't a delicate flower. I was human. With a mind that thought, a heart that yearned, a soul that burned for something more. But I swallowed my voice, as I always had. Swallowing had become my way of surviving. By the age of 12, I had memorized long passages of the Quran. I knew the words by heart, but felt nothing but a weight. The madrasa teacher kept his cane always at his side, like a silent threat. Once, my friend Sarah hesitated during a recitation. Her voice broke, and her eyes filled with tears. The cane came down on her back with such force that she fell to the floor. I wanted to run to her, but my legs froze. Fear paralyzed me. I stood there, listening to her cries spread through the room like an unforgettable echo. That night, I tossed and turned for hours, her sobs still ringing in my ears. I murmured to the dark ceiling, "God, are you love or just punishment?" The silence that followed frightened me more than the question itself. As I reached adolescence, the chains tightened even more. My classmates talked about parties, friendships, dreams. I just watched, from afar, like a ghost among the living. I was there, but I wasn't living. I couldn't go to parties. I couldn't choose my friends. I couldn't take a step outside the house without my brothers watching. Once, a teacher pulled me aside after class. She looked deep into my eyes and asked very quietly, "Amina, are you okay?" For a moment, everything rose in my throat. The pain, the fear, the exhaustion. I almost told her, but then my father's voice screamed inside me, "Don't bring shame." I forced a smile and replied, "I'm fine, miss." But I wasn't. I was drowning. Looking back today, I see that my childhood wasn't just about religion. It was about learning to be silent, to endure, to fear. It was about burying who I truly was, that girl God created with life in her eyes. But even there, deep within that burial, there was something that wouldn't be extinguished. The dream of the man in white still shone like a spark, small, but alive. I thought my life was sealed, that my fate was to obey, suffer, and pretend, that this was the price of honor, that this was a woman's duty. But I was wrong, because a storm was coming, and it would turn my life upside down. I was 19 when my father broke the news to me. I was engaged. It wasn't a question, it was a sentence. "You're marrying your cousin," he said, sipping tea as if he were talking about the weather. "He's a good man. He'll keep you firmly on the right path." My head spun. My cousin, 10 years older. A man who barely spoke to me, but who looked at me as if I were already his property. I tried to protest, my voice trembling. "Dad, I'm not ready." He glared at me with sharp eyes. "Do you think marriage expects your readiness? You will obey. It is your obligation." I wanted to scream. I wanted to say that my body wasn't his to trade, that my life wasn't a bargaining chip. But the prison of honor was too high. I kept quiet. I felt my words turn to stone inside my chest. That night, lying in the dark, the shadows on the walls seemed to shift, like chains trying to bind me even tighter. I whispered again, "God, is this all? Is it just obedience, silence, and pain?" The only response was the same old silence, but something in me started to break. Weeks later, I made a mistake. I asked questions. It happened during one of our family Quran readings. We were all sitting in a circle as usual. My father read aloud, his deep voice echoing through the room, as if each syllable were a judgment. I was secretly reading the Quran, not out of obligation, but out of desperation. I was searching for some shred of peace, something that would make me believe that maybe, somewhere, God truly cared about me. But the more I read, the more confused I became. There were things that didn't add up, verses that spoke of freedom, but also of brutal punishment. How could both be true? One night, during family reading, I decided to ask. My voice came out low, shaky, but clear. Father, the Quran says that there is no compulsion in religion, but it also says that whoever abandons the faith must die. How can that be fair? How can the two coexist? The air in the room suddenly felt heavy, as if time had stopped. My brother's eyes widened. My mother clutched her veil tighter, as if trying to hide inside it. My father's face flushed, but not with shame, with fury. He slammed the Quran shut, like a judge finalizing a sentence. "Don't you dare question God's word," he shouted. "You speak like traitors." Before I could respond, his hand crossed the space between us and smacked me hard in the face. The impact was sharp, and everything inside me seemed to shake. My cheeks burned, and tears began to fall before I even realized it. "You are a woman. Your job is to obey, not to think, not to question," he snapped. I felt the ground disappear from under my feet. That wasn't just a physical attack. It was as if, with that blow, he was trying to erase every trace of my voice, of my identity. But instead of erasing me, something broke. Or maybe, something finally broke free. I retreated to my room that night like a shadow. I closed the door, knelt on the floor, and collapsed. My body shook. Sobs came like waves. There were no more flowery words, no memorized prayers, just a scream, a raw, naked cry. God, who are you? If you're real, if you're not just fear, show me. Show me who you really are. If you're just punishment, then please let me go. But if there's love in you, reach out to me, because I can't take it anymore. My forehead touched the carpet, wet with tears. I didn't even know who I was praying to, whether it was the God of the Quran or the God of the man in white from my dreams. I only knew I couldn't go on like this. I was at war, inside, out, and I felt like I was losing. The following days were even more suffocating. My father practically watched over me. My brothers whispered about me as if I were a burden about to bring shame on the family, and my mother couldn't look at me anymore. It was as if my desire for freedom was contagious, and she feared being infected. Sometimes I thought about giving up, about giving in, about erasing every trace of Amina who asked questions and dreamed of something more. But then I remembered the anger in my father's eyes, the taste of blood when I bit my lip to keep from screaming, the coldness in my fiancé's gaze, and I also remembered the dream, the light, the voice that once called to me, "Come." I no longer feared my father, or my cousin, or death. What I truly feared was spending the rest of my life being someone I wasn't. One of those nights, my fiancé, the man with whom my future was already sealed, came to visit. His gaze roamed over me as if I were already a possession. He talked about our home, our children, our future, but he never said my name affectionately. He never asked what I wanted, because to him, I wasn't someone. I was something. I smiled out of politeness, but inside, my soul screamed, not for help, for freedom. That night I knelt again, but this time I didn't ask for an explanation. I asked for an answer. God, if you are love, show me. If you are true, please come to me. I don't want to live in darkness anymore. I just want to know who you really are. I didn't know, but that prayer was like a seed sown in the driest soil of my soul, and heaven heard it. It was the next night. Something started to change. I cried until I felt like there was nothing left inside me, until my voice was lost in the void, and my chest ached as if something were breaking inside. The carpet in my room was soaked with my tears, and like so many other times, I fell asleep right there, without answers, just exhausted. But that night was different. I had a dream, not like the others. It was more vivid, more real than anything I had ever experienced. I was in a vast, endless desert, with hot sand beneath my feet, and dark clouds covering the sky like a storm veil. The wind whistled around me, and every step was a struggle. My throat was dry, my body weak. I dragged myself along like someone about to collapse, and then I fell to my knees. I had no strength left. It was then that I saw him. A figure approached, dressed in white. He walked against the wind, but the storm seemed to recede around him. It was as if creation itself recognized who he was. The light emanating from him wasn't a light that hurt the eyes, but one that warmed the soul. My heart raced. I didn't know whether to cry or tremble. I felt fear, but at the same time, something stronger than fear, hope. He stopped in front of me and held out his hand. When I looked into his eyes, I felt as if, for the first time, someone truly saw me. Not as a burden, not as property, not as an obligation, but as someone loved. His gaze held no condemnation, no demands, just love, pure, alive. And then he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Those words pierced the desert, but they also pierced something within me. It was as if every part of my being, body, mind, spirit, responded to him. My lips trembled. I reached out, and when I touched his, something exploded within me. A warmth, a peace, a fire, and an ancient thirst, one that no rote prayer, no rule, no effort could quench, was quenched. I woke up crying, but not out of despair. They were different tears. My lips trembled as I whispered, "Jesus, was that you?" The name sounded dangerous, but at the same time, it was beautiful, holy, true, alive. I felt as if I had said something forbidden, and at the same time, something my heart had waited a lifetime to say. I spent the day in silence, haunted by the dream, those eyes, that voice, that peace, but along with the love came dread. Because if that man was Jesus, then what about everything I'd been taught? What about everything I'd done to try to please God? I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, but his love was too real to forget. His presence was like a perfume that lingered in the air even after the person left the room. That night, with my heart racing and my hands trembling, I went into my room and closed the door. I grabbed my phone from under the blanket, as if it were hiding a dangerous secret. I typed a word I'd always avoided, Jesus. I expected punishment. I expected something bad to happen, for my heart to stop, for the ceiling to collapse, but none of that came. Instead, stories came. Stories of healing, of compassion, of a God who touched the rejected, who ate with sinners, who wept with those who suffered. I read about the woman caught in adultery, dragged into the crowd like garbage. I saw the men preparing stones to kill her, and Jesus saying, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." One by one, they left, and then he looked at her and said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." The word struck a chord within me. This was it. This was what my heart had been searching for. A God who didn't use fear to control, but love to transform. A God who didn't silence me, but lifted me up. I downloaded a Bible app. Each click felt like a transgression, but I continued. I opened the Gospel of John and began to read, slowly, quietly, like someone entering a sacred place for the first time. And what I found there was everything I never imagined God could be. The words of the gospel began to touch me in a way nothing had ever touched me before. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I didn't understand everything, but I felt as if each word pierced the deepest layer of my heart. It was as if those sentences weren't just written there, but alive, whispering something I'd always wanted to hear but never quite put into words. But it was when I got to John 3:16 that something inside me broke completely. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. I stopped. I took a deep breath, and I cried, "What do you mean? God loved? He didn't control, he didn't threaten. He loved, he gave, he surrendered." For the first time, God didn't seem distant, cold, or unreachable. He seemed like a father. He seemed like someone who saw my suffering and cared. That night, I buried my face in my pillow and cried softly, "Jesus, is that really you? Is this all true?" The question was fragile from my lips, but it carried the weight of a lifetime of silence. I began to live between two worlds. By day, obedient. By night, hungry. As soon as the house was asleep, I hid under the covers with my cell phone, reading the Gospels like someone who had found a river in the middle of the desert. Jesus' words weren't just beautiful. They healed me. They touched wounds I couldn't even name. His name became my secret, my refuge, Jesus. Just whispering that name felt dangerous, but it was also sweet. It was like breathing after years of suffocation. Deep down, I knew, if my family found out, there would be no going back. What for me was salvation, for them would be betrayal. In Islam, leaving the faith is considered an unforgivable dishonor, and it's often treated as a crime worthy of death. One night, while praying silently, I asked something I'd never had the courage to say out loud. "Jesus, if you're real, don't let me die without knowing you." And in that moment I realized I already believed. I already loved him, even without understanding everything, even with fear. I already belonged to him, but the fear grew, and I began to realize that time was running out. Everything fell apart faster than I imagined. I thought I was being careful, that if I deleted my history, hid my apps, and prayed only when everyone was asleep, my secret would be safe. But secrets, no matter how hard we try to hide them, always find a way out. One typical night, I left my phone charging on the edge of my bed and went to the kitchen to get some water. My younger brother, always curious, snuck into my room without me noticing. When I returned, he was standing there, phone in hand, a look in my eyes that chilled me to the core. "What is that?" he whispered, a half smile on his lips. He turned the screen towards me. The Bible app was open. The light from my phone seemed brighter than ever, as if it were giving me away. It was like a sentence, as if every verse I'd read in secret was now screaming through the house. In that instant, I knew my world would never be the same again. My heart froze the moment I saw the phone in my brother's hands. It was as if the air had drained from the room. I tried to snatch it back in a panic, but he firmly pushed it away. "Are you reading this? You're reading about one, as the Christians call it?" His voice was low, but filled with shock and anger. "Are you out of your mind, Amina?" "Please," I whispered, breathless. "Don't tell Baba, please." But it was too late. His look said it all. To him, I was no longer his sister. I was an enemy, a danger, a disgrace. Minutes later, chaos ensued. My father stormed into the room. His phone trembled in his hand, and his face was like stone. My mother followed close behind, her eyes wide, her hand clutching the handkerchief as if it were about to fall apart. "What is that?" he yelled, pushing the phone almost against my face. "What blasphemy is this?" I cried. I trembled. I wanted to explain, but my voice simply trailed off. "Speak, Amina," he demanded. I finally managed to say something. I just wanted to understand. I just wanted to know the truth. That's when the slap came. So hard that I lost my balance and fell. The sound of the impact still echoes in my memory. My ears rang. My vision blurred. He spat with contempt. "You have betrayed us. You have betrayed Islam. You bring shame upon our home." My mother wept softly in the corner, as if she already knew there was no turning back. My brother stood in the doorway, his eyes cold, as if he had already erased me from his memory. I tried to tell her. I told her about the dream, about the man in white, about the peace I'd felt like never before. But my words wouldn't sink in. They seemed to be hitting a wall made of tradition, fear, and honor. My father looked at me as if I were a burden he needed to carry for the last time. "You know what that means, right? To deny the faith? It means death," he replied. "It means hell. You are no longer my daughter." I wish he had hit me again, because that hurt more than any wound on my body. That sentence killed me a little inside. After that, they locked me in the room. The windows were covered. The door was locked. They barely left any food. The silence outside was worse than the screams. I could hear their footsteps in the hallway, the whispers, the judgments. One night, I heard familiar voices coming from the living room, men from the mosque, the elders, muffled conversations that sounded like knives. "She dishonored the family name," one of them said. "She needs to pay," muttered another. "It's a clear case of honor killing," whispered the third. My whole body froze. I curled up on the floor. The pillow muffled my sobs, but inside me, panic exploded. They were going to kill me, my family, my people. My home had become the most dangerous place in the world. It was there, between the cold floor and the hot tears, that I prayed like I had never prayed before. "Jesus, help me, please. I don't want to die. I don't know what to do. Show me that you are with me." And in that moment, even with all the fear, I felt something. A gentle peace, almost imperceptible, but real. It wasn't a voice, nor a vision. It was a presence, like arms enveloping me, like someone whispering in the midst of the chaos. "You are not alone." That night I slept, for the first time in days, and I dreamed of the man in white again. He said nothing. He just looked at me with compassion, as if he knew everything, and still loved me. But when the sun rose, I heard the sound. Stones, dragging across the backyard floor. I walked over to the window and saw the men approaching. Some spoke softly, others just stared. But I knew. They had come for me. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Every cell in my body was trembling. I knelt in the corner of the room. I pressed my lips together, and with what little strength I had left, I said, Jesus, if it is today, if I have to die, let it be with you. Don't let me die far from your love. Stay with me. The door creaked, and my heart nearly stopped. My father stormed in, his eyes blazing, his iron-hard hand gripping my arm. Come, he said without a hint of hesitation. My legs barely held me up, but I was pulled out of the room like dead weight. We walked through the house in deathly silence. I passed my mother, huddled in a corner, crying softly, but without raising her voice to defend myself. The night chill hit my face, biting, but it was nothing compared to the ice I felt inside. Outside, a crowd was beginning to gather. Neighbors, acquaintances, the men from the mosque, all with hard, stern faces. I saw a few children slipping between the adults' legs, their eyes full of fear and curiosity. And there, at the end of the street, in a dirt field, the stones waited, my gaze fixed on them. Small, medium, large, each carrying the weight of the condemnation they had handed me. I knew what it meant. I knew how it would end. But still, I couldn't run. There was nowhere to go. For a moment, everything was silent, as if the world held its breath. And that's when I felt it. Deep inside, soft and firm, a voice, not of anger, not of condemnation, but of love, a warm presence amidst the cold. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Tears welled up in my eyes. I looked up at the overcast sky and whispered, almost soundlessly, Jesus, hug me. My father dragged me to the middle of the forming circle. People were approaching. Some were already holding stones. Others were waiting for the signal. No one spoke to me. No one looked me in the eye, as if I were already dead. My legs gave way, and I fell to my knees on the cold earth. The physical pain hadn't even begun, but my heart already felt crushed. It was then that my father raised his hand. His voice echoed, cutting through the night air. She denied Islam. She dishonored our home. She betrayed the blood. A murmur ran through the crowd, but no one objected. Not even my mother, who watched from afar, her face covered, her body trembling. And then, the first stone flew. It hit me in the shoulder so hard I staggered. A dull thud, the pain throbbing immediately. I tried to get up, but another rock followed, slamming into my back. I curled up, arms over my head, and the whole world became a blur of pain and screams. Unfaithful. Shame. Traitor. The words were sharp as stones. They tore at flesh and soul at the same time. I was hit in the arm, in the ribs, in the head. Each impact seemed to take more from me. I fell to the ground, my face pressed into the dust, my body trembling. But even there, even in the midst of the brutality, I still whispered the name that gave me life. Jesus, Jesus, don't leave me. I thought it would be the end of me, but it wasn't. I huddled on the ground, trying to shield my face with my arms. The stones kept coming, relentless. The ground beneath me grew wet. Blood or tears, I couldn't tell. Pain pierced me like blades, and amid the screams and jeers, a silent certainty took hold of me. This is how I die. But then, deep in my broken heart, where only the echo of pain and abandonment remained, I cried out. Not to the God I had been taught to fear, not to the God who had been imposed on me with fear, punishment, and silence. I cried out to the one who came in the dream. Jesus, please help me. And something happened. Amidst the violence, the dust, and the shame, a presence washed over me like an invisible wave. The sound around me muffled. Time seemed to slow. The pain didn't disappear, but it was enveloped by something greater, an impossible peace, a peace that made no sense in that place. I looked up through tears and blood, and there, even without seeing him with my eyes, I saw him. Deep within my soul, the man in white was there. His eyes were on mine. Pure love, love that transcends pain, rejection, and death. His hands reached out as before, as in the dream. I am with you. Don't be afraid. The rocks continued to fall, but now they seemed distant. The pain was no longer all that existed. Through my sobs, I whispered through cracked lips, Jesus, I am yours. One last rock hit me in the side of the head, and then everything went black. My body gave out, but even when everything went black, I still heard him. You are mine, and I will never abandon you. Silence. I don't know how much time has passed. Hours? Minutes? An eternity? The crowd was gone. The dust had settled. The field was empty, and the blood on the ground was beginning to dry. My father turned his back. My mother cried, quietly, embarrassed, and then fell silent. They left me there to die. But I didn't die. Against all odds, I was still breathing. The broken body, yes. The soul, however, alive, ardent, certain. Jesus had found me. He had sustained me in the midst of death. And now I knew, in a way no religion had ever taught me, that he was real. I woke to the soft sound of footsteps. Someone approached cautiously, as if treading on sacred ground. A shadow fell over my face, and gentle hands touched my arm. "Amen," a female voice whispered. "Stay with me. You'll be fine." She was a woman from the community, a Christian I barely knew. Maybe I'd seen her on the street once or twice. I didn't even know her name. But there, in the dark, she knelt beside me, tears in her eyes, and wrapped me in her shawl. "Jesus is with you. You are not alone." I tried to speak, but the words barely left my lips. Darkness began to pull me back, wrapping tightly around me, blurring my vision. The last thing I felt were those firm arms lifting me up, pulling me from that place of death and despair. That night, as my body wavered between consciousness and sleep, I had a different vision. I was back in the desert, but now the man in white was close. So close I could feel the heat of his gaze. He held out his arms wide, and behind him flowed rivers of living water, crystal clear and pure. "You are mine," he said, his voice both soft and firm. "I have called you by name. You will not be destroyed. I will heal you, and I will use you." The tears fell, and I knelt before him, giving him all that was left of me. "But I'm broken," I whispered, filled with pain and fear. He lifted my face tenderly, his eyes piercing every wound, every scar. "My strength is made perfect in weakness. Trust me." Then, a light took over everything. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a small, simple room, the air thick with the scent of herbs and oil. My body ached terribly, but I was alive. My head was wrapped in a cloth, my ribs bandaged, my skin swollen and bruised. The Christian woman who had rescued me sat beside me, her eyes filled with compassion and hope. "You are safe now," she whispered. "Jesus saved you." Tears streamed down my face as I struggled to speak. My lips trembled, but I managed to say that I had seen him, the man in white, as real as the air I breathed. She squeezed my hand with a calm smile. "Yes, Amina, he is always with you." I closed my eyes again, the pain pulling me into a deep sleep, but a deep peace filled my heart. I was not alone. When I woke, it felt like I'd awakened in another world. The wooden ceiling above me was low, dimly lit by a small lamp. My body felt strange, heavy, almost as if it belonged to someone else. Every movement was a battle against the pain. My ribs burned with every breath. My head throbbed beneath the bandages, and my entire body was marred with bruises. For a moment, fear gripped me. I remembered the stones, the screams, the blood. I thought maybe I was dead, that I was somewhere beyond this world. But then, I felt a warm hand touch mine, a human hand, full of affection and tenderness. "You're awake," a voice whispered. It was a woman, her face weathered and kind. Her eyes glistened with tears. At first, I couldn't recognize her, but gradually, the memory returned. It was that woman from the community, the same one who had rescued me from that death camp. She smiled softly. "You're safe now, Amina. You're at peace." My dry throat wouldn't let the words come out easily. I tried to ask, "Why? Why did you save me?" Her eyes softened even more. She brushed my hair back from my face and said, "Because Jesus told me to take care of you." The tears finally fell, and I couldn't hold them back any longer. I closed my eyes, and with them closed, that man came back to me, the man in white, his hands outstretched, saying, "You are mine." I wanted to stay awake, to hold on to this reality, but exhaustion took me again. As I slept, the visions continued. I lay in a dark valley, my body bruised, blood streaming down my arms and legs. But there was no fear. He was with me, Jesus, the same man in white, with eyes that burned with love and fire. He came to me, and the shadows around me dissipated before his presence. He picked me up in his arms as if I were light as a feather, carrying me with care and strength at the same time. His voice, firm but full of tenderness, rang within me. "You are mine. Don't be afraid. I will never abandon you." When I woke again, my pillow was wet with tears. The weight on my chest seemed a little lighter, though my body still cried out for relief. The woman caring for me sat nearby, reading a small book I immediately recognized, the Bible. In a weak voice, almost a whisper, I asked, Can you read it to me?" She looked at me in surprise, and then a smile lit up her face. Without hesitation, she opened the book and began reading softly, as if each word were a hug. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." My heart sank. Those words fell on me like cool water on an open wound. Restores my soul. I had never heard anything like it. So deep, so real. "More," I begged, closing my eyes, wanting to hear more of that promise. She continued, as if her voice were a lullaby, filling the room with comfort, love, and the assurance of a present God, a God who cares. That night, I prayed again, not in Arabic, not with the words I knew by heart. It was a broken whisper, simple but sincere. "Jesus, thank you. I don't know how to follow you, but I want to. Please don't let them find me." Fear still gripped my heart. Fear of my father, of the mosque, of my own family. If they found out I was alive, they would come back to finish me off. The woman saw the fear in my eyes and held my hand firmly. "Amina, they're after you. Your father spread the word that you ran away, that you shamed the family. But you're safe here. The church will protect you." Church. The word sounded strange in my mouth, like a new world, an unknown place, but also like a home I didn't even know existed, a different family. The days dragged by as my body began to heal. The woman tended me with herbs, whispered ancient prayers, and sang soft hymns in a language I didn't understand, but whose melody soothed my soul. There were still nights when the pain overwhelmed me, and the fear returned with a vengeance. I saw their faces, the anger in my father's eyes, the contempt in my brother's, and the stones that had mercilessly struck me. I would wake in a cold sweat, my heart racing, but whenever fear threatened to swallow me, I whispered one word, "Jesus." And every time peace came, not like an instant miracle, not like something perfect, but enough to keep me going through the night. As the days passed, my strength slowly returned, and I began to ask questions. One night, my voice trembling, I asked the woman, "Why did he come to me?" She smiled tenderly and replied, "Because he loves you, Amina. He heard your cry. Jesus leaves the 99 to seek the one who is lost, and you are that one person for him." His words broke me. Tears came uncontrollably, streaming down my face as sobs racked my body. But I'm broken, ruined. My own family wants me dead. She touched my face gently, her eyes shining with compassion. "And yet, he chose you. The world may reject you, Amina, but Jesus never will." I cried in her arms, letting that truth sink deep into the wounds of my heart. But healing wasn't easy. Many nights I still doubted. Many nights I still felt the pain of betrayal, loss, and abandonment. I couldn't get my mind off my mother's heavy silence, my father's fiery gaze, my brother's cruel contempt. I also thought about the neighbors, the flying stones, the voices calling me a traitor. The pain crushed me, consumed me completely, relentlessly. One night, with my hands shaking, I cried out in the silence of my room, "Jesus, why me? Why save me if all I have is this pain, this loneliness?" And then, even in the stillness, a soft, steady voice echoed within me, barely audible but impossible to deny. "Because I love you. Because my blood was shed for you. You are mine." That love was unlike anything I'd ever known. It wasn't something to earn or deserve. It was a pure, immense gift that enveloped and sustained me. Little by little, each piece of my broken heart began to knit back together. But the danger hadn't passed. The woman caring for me warned me. Rumors were beginning to circulate. Some were already saying I was alive. My father, my brothers, the entire community. Everyone was searching for me. Fear tightened my chest again. I didn't want to face all of that. I didn't want to die. But I remembered his words, that vision. "Do not fear. I will never abandon you." And it was this promise that gave me the strength to carry on. I wasn't ready to face the world yet, but I knew one thing. I could never go back. I could never deny the one who found me when I was on the brink of death and called me by name. When I finally managed to stand and look at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the girl reflected there. Her face was swollen, covered in bruises. A scar marred my eyebrow where a rock had torn my skin. My eyes, deeper and more tired, seemed to hold centuries of pain. I had lost weight, and my hair, once hidden beneath my hijab, now fell loose and disorderly over my shoulders. I reached for the glass, a sob catching in my throat. Who was I now? I was no longer the imam's obedient daughter. I was no longer the girl the community celebrated for her purity. For most, I no longer existed. I had been erased. One afternoon, as I was resting on my mattress, the woman who saved me came into the room holding a folded piece of paper, her eyes full of sadness. "Amina," she said softly, "you need to see this." With trembling hands, he handed me the paper. It was a message that had been circulating throughout the community, written in my father's own hand. "From this day forward, my daughter Amina is dead to me. She has chosen the path of dishonor and estrangement. She no longer carries my name. Whoever finds her, let them report her.